On behalf of the trustees, faculty, and staff of the college, I want to congratulate members of the class of 2012 upon your matriculation, and I want to welcome transfer students to the college also. I've enjoyed the last 2 days when I have met all of you and learned your path that brought you to Occidental. This convocation, like that commencement when you will graduate, is a ceremonial ritual observing academic achievement. Convocation initiates you into the general company of educated men and women across the centuries. When you do graduate, you will join the specific company of 20,000 living Occidental alumni. The ancient rituals are repetitive, ceremonial, but you are neither. You are unique individuals. You are members of a distinctive generation. Generational theorists have predicted your appearance. Then they observed your beliefs and behavior and speculated about your historical significance. They have even given you a name. You are the millennials. You were born midway in the millennial generation, which was born during the 1980s and 1990s. Your parents mainly were boomers, born during the 1950s, who themselves were children of my generation, dubbed ignominiously the silent generation, born in the 1930s. You are characterized as more numerous, more affluent, better educated, and more ethnically diverse than any other youth generation in living memory in the United States. The millennials are the first 100 million person generation. Non-whites and Latinos are half again more numerous in your generation than in your parents' generation, and 3 times more numerous than in my generation. Your generation is the least Caucasian, as well as the most diverse ethnically. 1 millennial in 5 has at least 1 immigrant parent, and 1 in 10 has at least 1 non-citizen parent. It is in your beliefs and behavior that you are said to be so different from the generations which directly preceded you, the Gen Xers, born during the 1960s and 1970s, and your boomer parents. You are characterized as self-consciously special, viewing yourselves collectively important to the nation and to your parents' sense of purpose. That sense of purpose includes watching over you closely. You are, in fact, close to your parents and optimistic about the future. You are team-oriented, hard-working, even feeling pressured to achieve, confident that you and your generation can excel. You are further characterized as more comfortable with your parents' values than any other recent generation. All of these characteristics were first predicted 2 decades ago by generational theorists who believed in cyclical change, and first observed 10 years ago when the oldest millennials got to high school and started college. Your specific age group is predicted to manifest the millennial values and behavior even more strongly than those born a few years previously. Each of the 5 generations born in the 20th century, you millennials are the last, and the so-called greatest generation of World War II was the first, revolted more or less against immediately preceding generations. It is said that you are similarly in revolt, even though the form it takes is positive communal action. Each generation, in effect, tries to solve problems associated with their predecessors, and in so doing is viewed in revolt. Thus, recent social splintering, cultural exhaustion, and civic decay are seen by you millennials as problems. So, contemporary narcissism, impatience, iconoclasm, and constant focus upon talk, which is usually argument, rather than action, are seen as your predecessors' problems. It is said that the millennial solution will be to set high standards, get organized, team up, and do civic deeds. The Spanish theorist Ortega y Gasset is supposed to have defined a generation as, quote, a species of biological missile hurled into space at a given instant with a certain velocity and direction, unquote. Quoting Ortega y Gasset, generational theorists liken you millennials to a loaded rocket. So long as millennials can wheel themselves onto the right launch pad and point themselves in the right direction, they can deliver excellent results. They represent an opportunity that, once fully understood and appreciated, must be acted upon by people of all ages. So what then is the nature of Occidental College, today's target for your generational missile? The contemporary college has evolved through the transitions between and among the generations I have indicated. In the 1930s and 1940s, the half-century young institutions struggled through the Great Depression and the Second World War and flowered in the 2 decades after 1945. Like the fabled Greatest Generation and the dominant American post-war establishment, Occidental got bigger, richer, lived better, and celebrated its success. In a society in which few people had even gone to college at all 50 years earlier, Occidental's success, and that of higher education generally, was remarkable. Those who celebrated seemed not to notice that only a minority of the population still were going to college, and a tiny portion of that minority were students of color or were poor. Occidental's very real achievement was to be an academically aspiring arts and sciences residential college for undergraduates from middle-class families nearby. Teachers, doctors, lawyers, engineers, business people, government and social service workers testified as to the high quality of their Occidental educations at that time. The relatively protected insularity of the campus was challenged by the youthful boomer generation beginning in the later 1960s. In loco parentis, on campus, and off campus, Vietnam War exposed ideological and generational fault lines. Issues of civil rights, civil liberties, gender, campus governance, endowment investment policy, sexual harassment and orientation, complicated simple political conflicts into cultural conflicts after the 1960s. It was the boomer generation faculty members, assisted by mediating silence, S-I-L-E-N-T-S, as administrators and professors, who stimulated the diversity initiative on this campus 25 years ago, resulting in John Slaughter's presidential inauguration 2 decades ago. A distinguished African-American engineer and director of the National Science Foundation, Slaughter literally put a face on Occidental's effort to have a multicultural student body and faculty. At the beginning of John Slaughter's tenure, Occidental's present mission statement was adopted. It is a synthesis of the earlier traditional emphasis upon a vigorous arts and sciences education with the more recent emphasis upon a multicultural campus. It reads, "The mission of Occidental College is to provide a gifted and diverse group of students with a total educational experience of the highest quality, one that prepares them for leadership in an increasingly complex, interdependent, and pluralistic world. The distinctive interdisciplinary and multicultural focus of the college's academic program seeks to foster both the fulfillment of individual aspirations and a deeply rooted commitment to the public good." This now 2-decade-old mission statement is belatedly the aspiration of most superior colleges in the United States, most superior colleges and universities as well in the United States. Continuing democratization of American life means that almost all institutions, from schools to churches to the professions to marriages and families, are trying to reconcile traditional values with more diverse access to participation in those values. At Occidental, we have come to speak of our mission as being anchored by 4 cornerstones: excellence, equity, community, and service. Over the past two decades, the mission, often referred to informally as excellence and equity, has energized and shaped the development of the college's programs. It has allowed Occidental to develop a number of institutional goals, including commitments to academic and intellectual excellence, to the practice of equity in all forms, to the creation of vital community, and to value service for the common good. The articulation of the mission, the cornerstones and goals, is finite and simple. Successful implementation is infinitely complex. It is at best a work in progress, like democracy itself. So this is the target for the millennial generational missile, in Ortega y Gasset's phrase. The Occidental campus, like American society generally, needs precisely the leadership and the followership attributes which are purported characteristics of you millennials: community-mindedness, sympathetic appreciation of difference, respect for intellectual quality and honesty, veneration of justice, grace and beauty, and dedication to disciplined work. Your challenge as a maturing generation will be to practice those virtues imputed to you as youthful and therefore potential attributes. I title these remarks Changing Times because of its survey of generational change. But I earlier referred to you individually as unique. The next 4 years will be changing times for you personally, socially, intellectually, academically, if not also aesthetically and athletically. The ways in which you are going to change over the next years will be the most important aspect of your Occidental experience. That is what going to college is all about if it is successful. If you are not changed by it, you are being short-changed. What you cannot know, however, is how you will be changed. 5 graduating seniors in the class of 2008 participated in a June panel discussion of their Occidental experience before the Board of Trustees. Each highlighted the changes experienced at the college. One white woman is on her way to Oxford to pursue a doctorate in Japanese art history. She spoke of her early, lonely isolation at Occidental, lacking friends, and not enjoying prevalent styles of college social life. It was not until her junior year in Kyoto and her academic work in Japanese culture with her major professor that her depressive alienation was converted by scholarly intensity into personal satisfaction. Mastery of an academic subject matter was the catalyst for non-academic development, in her judgment. A Hopi Indian male, the first in his family to go to college, came to Occidental because he was recruited to play football. He gave that up when he was injured, although he continued to value his social life with fellow athletes who helped him negotiate the journey from reservation to campus. He attributed his intellectual and personal development to academic work illuminating his understanding of race and language. Majoring in the social sciences, he nevertheless realized by graduation that he next wanted to go to art school, which he is going to do. The only 4.0 perfect grade point in the class of 2008 was achieved by a white woman with a double major in chemistry and biology. She was the third student on the panel. She recounted not her academic challenges, which she obviously managed superbly, but rather the ups and downs of personal and social life and relations with faculty and staff members. Her interpretation of the greatest change she experienced was her transformation from a teenager who feared change of any sort to a senior who welcomed change as one aspect of healthy development. Her next change will be graduate school. The fourth student was an African-American male raised by a disabled single woman. He was a chemistry major who now is in Washington, D.C., beginning an internship at the National Institutes of Health. He will participate in research on the skin disease eczema, after which he is pondering going to medical school. By his own account, he arrived at Occidental in 2004, angry and combative, expressing the rage arising from the deprivation and injustice of his family's situation. Occidental staff members recall the fire in his eyes during his early years on campus. He continued to voice his concerns for social justice as he became a successful student, a lead tutor for others, and a community builder. He characterized his undergraduate year, The final member was an affluent white male, also a chemistry major. He characterized his undergraduate years as the least turbulent of the five. He said he had an absolutely great time. He did not depict adversities overcome, wounds inflicted, or feelings of isolation. But he did indicate what he considered transformative about his Occidental time. He was given the opportunity to develop leadership. Though he did not consider himself a superior swimmer, he became captain of the varsity team for 2 years. He credited his teammates and staff members for his development. He became a residence hall leader and interpreted his supervision of first-year students to be a profound learning experience for him. Though he was a good student, out-of-classroom activities furnished his narrative of change. He is spending his first post-Occidental months surfing while living in his parents' oceanside home. Finally, let me quote from an Occidental alum who would have graduated 25 years ago last May had he not transferred to Columbia after his sophomore year. Speaking in Colorado Springs 2 months ago, Barack Obama, class of '83, referred to how Occidental changed him. I quote, "Growing up, I wasn't always sure who I was or where I was going. That's what happens sometimes when you don't have a father in the home. But during my first 2 years of college, perhaps because of the values my mother had taught me, values of hard work, honesty, and empathy, perhaps because they had resurfaced after a long hibernation, or perhaps because of the example of wonderful teachers and lasting friends, I began to notice a world beyond myself. And then, by the time I graduated from college, I was possessed with a crazy idea that I would work at the grassroots level to bring about change," unquote. Occidental change worked for the 5 seniors. It worked for Barack Obama more than a quarter century ago. It has worked for Occidental alumni for over 120 years. In the name of the college, I wish you the best of luck in making it work for you.